I really just wanted to give a quick 20 minutes, hopefully it's shorter than that, on things you need to think about if you're trying to build a CPA or a CA firm. I'm going to skip through the intro slides quickly and talk about the agenda. So these are all things that I hope that we cover off in coming meetups in detail. It's going to be really light on tonight. Please don't write anything down. Once again, it will be shared. You'll have access to everything that's in here. So what is a USP? Business model for your practice. Your clients are your lifeblood. Can you scale? Making yourself obsolete. Key technology to roll out in your practice. And do something that matters to you. There's some takeaways in there, like how to move from time cost to value-based billing and spreadsheets and worksheets. And we've got time for Q&A at the end of both mine and Jeff's talk. So defining a USP, what is it? So USP is a unique selling proposition. So what makes you, your business, your firm, your practice stand out from the competition? There's a really great company and a great example over in the US called Cheney and Associates. Good friends with Steve, so he doesn't mind me dropping his name. But essentially they deal with solely church-based and faith-based organizations and not-for-profits. That is all they do. Granted, America has 300 million plus people there, so there's a large number of those organizations, but they pretty much just do end-to-end accounting, bookkeeping, services for that group. It makes it really easy for someone to go to his website, hear about him, and know that he services their needs. He also then has the opportunity to not only do base compliance, but also best practice for that industry. He talks at religious conferences about how to service your church. So, complete different take on the demographic. He's done a very good job of it. So, I challenge you, what is your USP? Why do you stand out? I've got 3 business models that I like to use. Hopefully I'm not ripping anybody else off with this one. So there's 3 that are up there. One is the surgeon, the second is a local coffee shop, and I think the last one's actually off the slide, it's Macca's. So the McDonald's model is, you do everything with a list, you choose, there's a price. You can be a local coffee shop, which might be you service a local area, a local industry, but usually it's tend to be in your local surroundings. And the last one is the surgeon. Typically this also makes you a bottleneck because you're the person who has to approve everything, but you might be a specialist in a particular area, but you're a sole operator. So like a surgeon doesn't get paid when they don't go to work, for instance. So me, myself, I started a McDonald's-based accounting firm who then moved into a local coffee shop with a specializing in startups. And then we're essentially a surgeon for those startups. We kind of went full breadth on that particular vertical. But it's challenging to choose one. You can also be all, but I think it's just to be aware of where you sit in the market and how you position yourself so that you can price and pitch and market appropriately. Last thing I wanted to cover off is your clients. So I've got money talks, bullshit walks. So I think we all get a little bit carried away. I mean, we have degrees and diplomas and official titles, but essentially if we don't have clients, we actually don't have a business. So although I set up a cloud accounting firm which promotes technology and stripping out processes, it doesn't strip out the soft touches. Instead of talking about is there GST on that invoice, so can you send me a copy of that? We're talking about what are you planning for the next 3 years? What is your next strategic move? Could you make an acquisition? Things like that. So you just skip right to the value-based part of the conversation. And bullshit works because if they don't trust you, you shouldn't bullshit them, always be honest. And typically speaking, they want you to be honest with them and also want to be able to go and ask you questions. But on the flip side, they also expect you to be their business leader. So make sure you're explaining to them what's happening and things outside that perhaps they're daily reading on what you see going on. Last thing, or one of the last things, sorry, is can you scale? It's funny, there was a meetup over in the UK run by Receipt Bank the other day called 3 Times. I'm not sure if you saw the hype on Twitter or the slides, but essentially it was all about how to go from achieving a 1 times multiple on the value of your firm to a 3 times. And talking about the transition in systems from desktop through to cloud and onwards into API land. There's 3 three main drivers to scale, and obviously that impacts the value of your practice because if it can grow. One is systems, next is people, and the last is clients. There's a bit more detail up there about that, but it's just a question for yourself. And the last thing, not the last thing again, but one other thing that we talked about a lot was making yourself obsolete. If you've ever done evaluation on a business, one of the key things is there a management team in place? Typically, accountants don't like to let go of control, so they don't make themselves obsolete, and therefore they limit themselves in terms of growth because they only have 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, or 7 days a week, depending on how much they work. But you tend to tell your clients all of this. I really challenge you to start looking at it yourself. They say work smarter, not harder, but practice what you preach. Make sure that you share knowledge amongst your team. So at Interactive, we had Confluence, which is actually an Atlassian application. It's basically a shared knowledge base, or an old school language. At my old firm, we called it an intranet. Make sure there's lots of knowledge in there so people understand how the firm works. So if you're not there, stuff still gets done. And lastly, everything is built on people. So your firm, you employ people, your clients are people. Make sure you trust. And I know that's a really hard thing to do, but make sure you start trying to bring them up because they should want to replace you because that's their career growth. Otherwise, they're all going to start their own firm at some point in time. Key technology. So these are the things and the apps that I want to focus on for this meetup in particular. The first category is internal and back office, so practice management, tax and documents. Also communication, so how you chat, email, share information inside your firm. Data management, so that's all about the accounting data. So payables, what you use for accounting, how you manage your debtors, and payroll. Are we on cloud payroll? See this guy. Client facing, how do you communicate? What reporting do you use? And what's the perception of the industry with your business? So how do you actually communicate to the global market or the local market or the Australian market what it is you're doing? Do something that matters, getting back onto the growing your firm part. Typically speaking, if you're not passionate about, if you're not sort of doing something that matters to you, that you care about, you're not going to put your all in it, and that'll show. So you should be wanting to help people, you should be wanting to help things grow. You should be wanting to give people access to information so they can help themselves. And the last thing, going back to the people knowledge, is all about teaching. One of the biggest things that we learned at Interactive was that the more open we were with information, with competitors, potential customers, staff, the more things started to go well. Because we were telling people stuff that we thought was private and confidential, and we started being more open about it. The next thing they knew is they didn't know it, couldn't understand it, and so when someone brought that up, they'd send them to us. Really weird, coming from a traditional accounting background where you kind of don't divulge your IP and your knowledge. It went completely the other way, where we had accountants sending us clients because they couldn't do their work. Be proud. Be a trusted advisor. Make a difference. So remember, what you do is important, and try and pick something you want to tell your grandkids about. So it's not all about the cash. It's about what kind of world you want to live in, and that leads into this. I guess the last question is, what legacy do you want to leave behind? So personally, I wanted to try and help move the needle 0.1%. That's it, but for as many businesses as possible. So on a macro level. For an accounting firm, we could do it probably more than that, but it was always one at a time, which is ripples in a pond, it's not a wave. I know 0.1% doesn't sound big, but across the world or across Australia, it's quite large. So that was my focus and passion. I've got some takeaways, like I said. So this will be available online. We'll email it to everyone. So there's a link there into how to define your business model, and there's a tool called the Lean Business Canvas that I suggest everyone have a look at. It's literally like a framework. I actually had the pleasure of working through something like that at Stanford School of Design, over in the US when I was on a tour there for education. And it literally breaks down how you do your business, who your market is, how you distribute, and makes you think about every element of what you're doing. And it's really important. So we revisit all the businesses about every year or two, just to sort of like completely wipe the slate clean and are we doing the right thing? Make sure you stand out from the crowd. It's huge. Starting an accounting firm, looked at what everyone else was doing, and then decided I wanted to be more like a startup. And this is running the accounting firm, not running a startup. And basically went, well, if everyone else says they're a proactive advisor, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to go build a video and a website and service our clients and show them we're a proactive advisor rather than saying it, if that makes sense. So if everyone else positions themselves as safe and trusted, we position ourselves as paradigm breaking, and we'd ask you questions and we'd tell you no. So just the complete opposite. And there's a video that kind of changed the game for us. And at the time I was leading all of our business development, and I would spend half an hour on the phone every day telling people what we did before they would even consider taking a meeting. So we spent some money and we built a video to explain that. And then about 3, 5, 6 weeks later, Rod Drury, who's the founder of Xero, opened the AGM in New Zealand at the stock exchange with our video, talking about this as the future of accounting. I mean, kind of helps. I mean, we didn't kind of plan for that, but it kind of helps, stimulate our name and get us out in the market. And the last thing there was pricing. So we've got 3 links there, and most of them are to blogs that I've written. My accounting firm tears apart their pricing every single year. We did it 3 or 4 weeks ago. Basically deciding whether or not we're charging too much, too little, what our target market is, our client is, and are we pricing effectively and looking at the competition. But how to move from time-based to value-based is up in there as well, or fixed fees, all those models, so the surgeon, all that sort of stuff is up there as well. I'm going to finish early. This is fantastic. So the decisions to make, who are your clients? How big do you want to grow? How will you charge? Are your clients happy? And that's a really, really important one. What can you do to make them happier is probably even more important. Can you scale? How far are you from being obsolete? And how do you get from there to here, I guess, and when? So what's your timeline? I've rushed through this, and there's not a lot of content there, but there's a lot more on our website and then the takeaways there. I'd strongly suggest you have a look at it. You will receive it once again in an email tomorrow. But that's pretty much it from me, because I did not want to talk too long. And thank you so much for coming, and I'll hand it over to Jeff. Thanks, guys.